السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عاملين ايه؟ الموضوع بتاع اوبك بلس كان ناقص واحد بس يتكلم فيه، والشخص ده لما يجي يتكلم فيه هيتكلم فيه بجميع جوانبه، وهيحط كل النقط على الحروف، وهيقول كل اللي انت عاوزه، وهينبهك لنقط انت ما انتش منتبه ليها، لا وبالعكس هيعرفك كمان فضايح الجانب الامريكي، وهيعرفك كمان ابتزاز الجانب الامريكي. الشخص ده هو سلمان الأنصاري، أستاذ سلمان الأنصاري، السياسي السعودي. عمل مداخلة مع قناة فرنسا 24 اتكلم فيها عن كل شيء. هناخد المقطع الفيديو بتاعه ونقسمه أجزاء ونعلق أو نعقب على كل جزء فيه. هنسمع الأول أول جزء في كلام سلمان الأنصاري للقناة الفرنسية.
Francois, there are a lot of accusations, speculations, and allegations against Saudi Arabia, specifically after OPEC Plus recent production cut. But let's put things into perspective. First, no pun intended, oil is not gas, and it will be a profound mistake to conflate the two, and that there is no comparison at all whatsoever between the high prices of gas and the average prices of oil. That's number one. It's the US that wanted to sell LNG gas to Europe with 4 times the price, not Saudi Arabia, nor OPEC, nor OPEC Plus. And President Macron, the French president, hinted about his frustration, personal frustration of the US exploitation of Europe's energy need. This is a fact. And Voltaire actually said it right. Il n'y a pas de vérité moyenne. There are no half-truths. The second thing is the US administration, as we all know, has waged a war against its domestic US oil industry through an executive order. Months afterward, he said, the Biden administration, Biden himself, at a climate conference, he said Saudi Arabia should be punished for its hydrocarbon production and how Saudi Arabia is exacerbating the climate change. And now he is asking us to pump more oil. And you see the double standards here. The third thing, which is very important and hasn't been very well reported by the media, which is the fact that the US administration urged Saudi Arabia to delay.
أنصحك تكمل معايا كلام سلمان الأنصاري للآخر. ده الجزء الأولاني، الجاي أروع من كده. كلام إن أنتوا بتكيلوا بمكيالين، وإن أنتوا بتخلطوا بين الغاز والنفط، وإن أنتوا عالم حرامية، أيوه لصوص، وإن أنتوا عايزين السعودية تخفض الإنتاج عشان خاطر التغير المناخي والاحتباس الحراري، ودلوقتي عايزين السعودية تزود الإنتاج. أنتوا عايزين إيه بالظبط؟ محدش عارف أنتوا عايزين إيه. أنتوا بتتهموا السعودية اتهامات باطلة. هيدخل بقى في قصة تخفيض الإنتاج، تأجيل تخفيض الإنتاج لمدة شهر. هندخل في الجزئية دي دلوقتي حالا.
The US administration urged Saudi Arabia to delay the production cut for a month. So that tells us what? It tells us that it has nothing to do about Russia at all whatsoever. It's all about the midterm elections, which means the US Democratic Party wants the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to meddle in the US elections to basically help them out. And that's why I said earlier, the US ship is too big to fail, but too divided to sail.
It is, though, the case, Salman al-Ansari, that we have seen escalation after escalation from Russia, which stands to profit from that oil revenue. It's the escalation after escalation that matters in this case, does it not? And it's not in Saudi Arabia's interest for Russia to be at war with Ukraine, is it?
Not at all. Actually, Saudi Arabia, 2 weeks ago, the US administration itself thanked the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for his personal efforts to mediate between the two Vladimirs, Putin and Zelensky, and managing to release American and European war prisoners. It was just 2 weeks ago. It was a huge step. You can call it symbolic, but at the end of the day, it's actually very important. Specifically, it might activate Saudi Arabia to do more efforts with regards to working to mediate between the two powers, so we don't get into a third world war scenario. And I'm not exaggerating here. It's actually a very possible thing. And Saudi Arabia has actually sided with the UN statement against taking lands by force. So Saudi Arabia has been very clear about its rejection of the Russian step to invade Ukraine. But does that mean Saudi Arabia is going to take sides in this specific conflict, or
ايوه يا باشا، الموضوع ملوش علاقه بروسيا اساسا، الموضوع له علاقه بالانتخابات النصفيه. هو قال لك الطلب الامريكي ده اتضح ان كل البروباجندا اللي هم عاملينها دي ملهاش صله بحكايه روسيا ولا العلاقه بروسيا، ولا عشان الانتخابات النصفيه، عايزين نظبط سعر الطاقه عشان الانتخابات النصفيه، عشان الحزب بتاعه. باختصار دخل في جزئيه تانية، قصه ان بيتهم السعوديه ان هي منحازه لروسيا. قال له احنا ما انحازناش لروسيا، احنا كنا معارضين الاجتياح الروسي اساسا، معارضين استيلاء اراضي على اراضي اوكرانيه وضمها روسيا، احنا معارضين في كل ده. ثم احنا كنا قوه متزنه، بنتصل بده وبنتصل بده، وامريكا كمان المفروض تعمل كده، مش تنحاز الى جانب واحد عشان تزيد الحرب اشتعالا، لان احنا داخلين على حرب عالميه ثالثه. الكلام كله تحليل سلمان الأنصاري في هذا الموضوع صحيح 100%، وأنا أثق في هذا الرجل وفي كلامه، لأن كلامه لا غبار عليه، وإن الإدارة الأمريكية دي أوقح مما تتخيل. النهاردة بيصدر تصريحات من الإدارة الأمريكية. قلت لكم امبارح في البث المباشر إن التصريحات هتبقى إيجابية ابتداء من امبارح، والنهاردة تصريحات إيجابية هنتكلم عنها في البث المباشر. خلينا نكمل كلام الأستاذ سلمان الأنصاري.
Oil has actually decreased almost 2 to 3% after the decision of the production cut. So we have to think carefully about, as I said earlier, we have to differentiate between gas and oil. And there is something very important. And Adam Smith, the congressman, Adam Smith, he's a Democratic congressman. He was actually urging Biden yesterday to not make any other further mistake with Saudi Arabia. And he's from the Democratic Party.
Well, let me just ask Kedevan Gorjestani very briefly, Kedevan, about that one point, that how much of this is about domestic politics in the U.S.?
Of course, it's a very big part. It might not be the most public part of the messaging from the White House. They are worried that there is going to be skyrocketing gas price. That is why I would agree with what your guest said about that this is completely political for the Americans.
Salman Ansari, what's your reaction when you hear Vladimir Putin saying, we're not isolated, we have partners, we have friends? Does that, again, make OPEC plus nations complicit in this invasion of Ukraine?
عارفين النقطة اللي احنا عمالين نهري فيها ايه؟ قصة النفط والشتاء. القصة كلها بتعتمد على الغاز، وقال ان احنا كده دلوقتي بنخلط بين النفط وبنخلط بين الغاز. اللي اوروبا محتاجاه هو الغاز في الفترة اللي جاية، مش النفط. قصة النفط دي كلام اهبل، كلام ملوش اي فايدة دلوقتي في فصل الشتاء، انما الاهم والتركيز الاكتر على الغاز. سألوا بقى المذيع، قال له يبقى الرئيس الروسي قال احنا لنا اصدقاء هل اوبك متورطة في غزو اوكرانيا؟ نسمع رد سلمان الأنصاري.
Make OPEC plus nations complicit in this invasion of Ukraine.
Let me tell you something, Francois, and as you know, I'm a political analyst, independent one. Russia, we have a lot of differences with Russia. Russia is supporting the regime that threatens our existence, which is Iran. Does that mean we have to take a side to be against them in this specific case? Not necessarily, because you can use diplomacy to de-escalate. We don't need to escalate, because that's a strategy that doesn't work. Escalate to de-escalate is not going to work. We need to work on de-escalating the issue and to prevent this from going out of control. It's still under control. All what we are seeing is still under control, but
even after the bombing of urban centers that we've seen over the last 3 days?
Look, wars are ugly. Wars are ugly. Wars are bad. And this is unjustifiable at all whatsoever. And Saudi Arabia has voiced its rejection of that as well. But at the same time, we don't want this to escalate. So is the solution for us to be just taking sides and just to try to do some kind of dramatic move in order for us to take sides? It's not in the interest of Saudi Arabia. It's not in the interest of the Arab world, and it's not in the interest of the energy market. And let's be very honest, Saudi Arabia is not a client state. It's not a client state. It's a nation that predates the US, and it's the heart of the Arab and Muslim world. And I think it will be a catastrophic mistake if the US takes any measure against Saudi Arabia. It would be, I would call it the mistake of the century, if the US does something against the interest of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The US-Saudi relations, I'm a big believer in this relationship. It's the cornerstone of global security and economic prosperity. Mike Pompeo himself said that he can't imagine a world where there is no Saudi with no Saudi-U.S. relations. So, and as I mentioned, the congressman from the Democratic Party, Adam Smith, and others. So there are people who we can count on in the United States who know the value of this relationship and who actually appreciated us just to.
فعلا هتحصل كوارث لو أمريكا اتجننت وعملت أي تصرف ضد المملكة العربية السعودية، لكن أنا أعتقد إن أمريكا بدأت ترجع لعقلها شوية امبارح والنهارده في تصريحات إيجابية، ولكن لن تفيد. عشان بس نتكلم ونقول لا ده هتجيب نتيجة وكلام من ده، لن تفيد. هذه التصريحات الإيجابية لن تفيد من الجانب الأمريكي. لقد قيل ما قال، وتم الإساءة للسعودية، وتم تهديد السعودية، والآن الكلام الإيجابي لن يمحو ما تم قيله سابقا. هنسمع آخر جزء في كلام أستاذ سلمان الأنصاري ونختم الحلقة.
Sorry, that Wall Street Journal article that we mentioned at the outset said that U.S. officials had warned their counterparts in Riyadh that public mood is turning against big oil producers, whether it be the Russians or the Saudis. And even if Donald Trump were to win re-election in 2024, it wouldn't be like it was in 2017 when his first foreign visit was to Saudi Arabia. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's very clear for everyone right now that using Saudi Arabia as a scapegoat for the Biden administration's failing policies doesn't work anymore. And if the Biden administration wants to lower the cost of oil and gas, they simply should invest more in their refineries and to lower energy taxes and to also to stick to a reasonable long-term plan that can both help their transition to clean energy without harming their American energy consumers. So just using Saudi Arabia and putting it in the center of the talk when it comes to the high energy prices is not going to help anyone. And I think across the aisle in the United States, they know that. But Biden is just trying to use this for midterm election success. But I don't think it's going to even work. And what's they going to do? Are they going to be in a position where they punish more than 23 nations just for the reason that they are trying to regulate the energy market? That's not.
كلام كله عبارة عن فتح الجانب الأمريكي. الجانب الأمريكي أصبح مفتوح بدرجة لا يمكن أن تتخيلها. الجانب الأمريكي اللي كان بيمثل قدام الشعب بتاعه إن هو بيحافظ على مصلحة الشعب وإن هو عاوز يرفه عن الشعب، أصبح الآن مكشوف أمام الجميع، وإنه بيتآمر على الشعب، وإنه بيعمل لحساب الحزب بتاعه نفس نظام الإخوان بالظبط. سلمان الأنصاري قال لهم خفضوا الضرائب، استثمروا في مصافي النفط، اعملوا كل شيء عشان الأسعار تنزل، وانتوا طبعا هتبقوا اتجننتوا لو انتوا حاولتوا تعاقبوا 23 دولة وتبقى أخطاء كارثية على دماغ الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. وأعتقد إن 23 دولة هيقفوا مع بعض وهيصطفوا مع بعض، هيقفوا مع بعض في سبيل إزاء أمريكا لو تم التآمر الأمريكي عليهم. وطبعا الكلام ده مش أول مرة، وده اللي بيبان في القرار الأخير بتاع أوبك. وإن في نقطة أخيرة عايز أتكلم فيها، إن أمريكا دلوقتي بتحاول تعمل وقيعة بين دول في أوبك وبين أوبك نفسها وإدارة أوبك علشان تعمل مشكلة وتطلع بأي نتيجة، ولكنها باءت بالفشل إلى وقتنا هذا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.